Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. The Mercenary, written by Mad Mechanic. God knows how much we hated the Indrari. We'd been contesting urban centers that they had captured for nearly 100 cycles. We'd been mortal enemies ever since we arose from our respective homeworlds, an unending war that none could even remember the cause of. The human was a mercenary, bipedal, and no real defining features other than the strength of a Deathworlder and the refusal to remove their gas mask in the presence of others. We didn't care. An extra gun was an extra gun. But today seemed different. The usual bloodthirst of the creature was replaced by a somberness that we couldn't understand. They suddenly refused to fight, and instead they sat in their little foxhole singing something in their language. Every now and then, they scanned the enemy trench line as if searching for something. Everyone assumed this was some sort of preparation for them going berserk. We couldn't have been more wrong. At around midday, I went to check in on the human, genuinely worried now. To my surprise, I found it wiring up a holographic projector and a speaker to its Moby deck. When I asked it what it was doing, it returned a simple answer: "Watch me." So that's what I did. First, it began to play a song across the battlefield with the same tune as the one they had been previously singing. Then it displayed 12 characters above the trench line facing the enemy trench. We assumed that it was a way to demoralize the enemy. Once again, we couldn't have been more wrong. Soon after, the little human had displayed its message and started playing its music. Something strange happened. The enemy trench began playing the same song and displayed the same message. I didn't think a creature as stocky as a human could run that fast, nor clear the trench wall that easily, but that's what it did, and immediately began walking towards the middle of no man's land, completely oblivious to the artillery and gunfire around it. On the other side of the trench, another figure was also crossing to no man's land. It was another human. Both sides ceased their fire when they saw this, not wanting to disturb what we thought to be an invocation of a ritualistic single combat. Once again, we were wrong. When the humans met, we watched them through scopes and drones, the snow lightly falling around us. And what do you think they did? They started throwing clumps of snow at each other. We were stunned. What manner of single combat involved attacks that wouldn't even injure a garden welder, let alone a Deathworlder? Eventually the two humans stopped and appeared to be discussing something, before turning and running back to their respective trenches. I remember the human clearing our trench in a single bound. It almost immediately began hacking away at the tree in the forest, and when the tree had fallen, the human picked it up and carried it out back to no man's land. The other human had returned with 2 logs and a shovel, as our human began digging a hole to place the tree into. The second human set up a campfire with 2 logs around it. At this point, our curiosity was getting the better of us, and every soldier in the trench line began marching over to the 2 odd little humans with their tree and campfire. The enemy was doing the same. To our surprise, the 2 humans were sharing stories and generally just having a good time when we got there. When we asked our human what in the name of all things sacred it was doing, it responded with the words that history remembers to this day: "Cheer up, old chap, grab a seat and join the festivities." I tell you, I'm sure what form of ancient magic the humans had invoked, but both parties made peace that day. Tanks became sitting places, gunships became kitchens, and sounds of death were replaced with laughter and camaraderie. The song of the 2 humans was mimicked by both sides, although I'll be first to admit that we did so poorly. God knows we hated the Andari, and God knows that it was a mistake to do so. I just wish that it hadn't taken thousands of years for a human to show us that. Excerpt from a speech given by Elder Al-Cluster. The speech was given on Federation Day, the yearly anniversary of the unexpected ceasefire between the Andari and the Tsur that resulted in the end of a millennia-long conflict and the formation of the strongest federation known to the galaxy. On the Federation homeworld, there is a statue of 2 humans sitting around a campfire, and engraved on the base of the statue are the very words that were displayed on that fateful day. December 25th. End of story. Story number 2. Entropy, written by Deathworlder. When we learned about entropy, our society had a quiet philosophical breakdown. Confronting the inevitability of the universe's heat death was difficult for any species that didn't like, well, dying. Sure, we went through the usual phases. There was a slow rise in hedonism as people coped by doing whatever the feck they wanted. Fatalism experienced a resurgence too. After that phase, or rather simultaneously, we worked towards finding a way to fix it, or at least understand it. We weren't happy when our scientists theorized that not only was the universe drifting apart, it was also accelerating. The timescale was still enormous, sure, but we had less time than we thought. Once we solved the problems of scarcity and biological mortality, we threw a large portion of our brainpower into understanding the likely end. Apparently, that wasn't the usual response for sentient life. Great many species were confronted with a problem so enormous, tended to accept it and move on. We called it giving up, but who are we to judge other species' outlook? Most aliens were stuck in the hedonistic or fatalistic phase that we had long passed. When we queried why they didn't try, we were inevitably given the same response. What's the point? Sure, the apathy of other species, most older than us, was disconcerting, perhaps even discouraging. Still, we trudged on. We built spheres enclosing entire stars as we made bigger and better computers to solve the problem, an approach that culminated in a delicate web that encompassed an entire arm of the galaxy. Our species, and many other, though they'd never admit it, eagerly awaited the supercomputer's calculation. Imagine our surprise when it announced that the universe's expansion was slowing down and was expected to stop. All connected sentient life in the multi-galaxies erupted into a furor, and our society had another not-so-quite philosophical breakdown. The solution for this one was equally simple. We threw our focus, instead, into understanding why. We reprogrammed our supercomputers, privately wondering if the change was a recent one, and if not, how we'd missed the mark so entirely. With the brain and computer power of the entire species working towards this, it didn't take too long to find the source. Figuring out how to reach it took a little longer, but we made a lovely, delicate device that would pierce the fabric of space-time itself, bringing us to the mysterious source of energy. There was a fierce debate about this, as there always is. Some were worried that we'd make the energy stop. Others felt that we'd bring a premature end, leading to the sudden destruction of the universe. Again, our curiosity won. The gaze of a collective sentient life watched as we pierced the veil, bringing us to where we are today. The being smiles as we complete our story, and we are struck with a sudden, instinctive understanding that we have pleased it. The fireplace crackles in the corner, warm and bright, and the being begins to speak. Eons ago, my species also discovered the harrowing problem of entropy, the being said, setting down the fragile container he called a teacup. And our story was much the same. We did not have the advantage you had, of course, since we were the first. Eventually, we discovered how to slow and even stop the inevitable end. With that knowledge came the ability to shape existence itself. The being pauses here, perhaps to hear our many questions, but we are content to wait. It shakes its head, still smiling, and continues. You are correct in your analysis. The curiosity and drive to face the impossible are not common, even across the multiverse, across the infinite span of universes and possibilities. But we decided that life, as beautiful and rare as it is, does not deserve to die because the universe willed it so. Thus, we vowed to end entropy, not just for us, but for every iteration of life. The being stands to add another log to the flames, though the flames have not dimmed. The fire gyrates in a slow, lazy circle, casting pale shadows across the being's space. When that being returns, it seems more pleased than before. Every few eons, however, we find beings such as yours, one with the will to clash against the fate of the universe, to try rather than accept, and when they come to greet us, we always welcome them. It declares, more certain than entropy, We teach them all we know and ask them to join our infinite voyage. You see, we are many now, though we keep the same name as the first. The being stretches out a hand. Would you like to become human? End of story. This is a special thank you to the one, the only, the legendary Eric Hino, who has become the only Tier 6 patron. I just want to thank the T5 patrons and channel members. Bob the Dragon, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Estrella the Dreamer, Tryagain95, Fury Giol, Meridian 117, Alithia, Jordan Bucksbaum, Angry Marine, Albarden Gusta, and Barkey. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.